just started homeschooling we homeschooled my kid last year, my little girl who's 7, and then we did it for my boy this year who's 10. So
what made you, what was the backstory there?
Well, I think that my little girl hated going to school, and then as we kind of looked into it, my son was in a classroom of 33 people, and he has my personality. Like, he needs the one-on-one coaching. When you're in a room of 30 people, it's hard for people like me to focus. And, you know, he's so street smart that he figured out how to basically like maneuver all around and kind of get out of the work. So he was at a 2nd grade reading level when we found out. He was in 4th grade, but he just figured out how to dodge everything. And so we're like, okay, we want to do this homeschool. So we have this lady come in for 3.5 hours a day, just bust through everything. And then the rest of the day is for privates for basketball, golf, dancing. And then when I get home at 5:00, I can be with them instead of having to run them through all these activities, which So it's been awesome. He's back up to a 4th grade reading level, and just, you know, what's school been in for 4 months? Like, it's just nuts.
What was the antithesis? Like, someone from school came to you and said, hey, there's some issues here. We gotta talk about your son, or you were noticing it and just said,
it started with my little daughter last year. We put her in, first grade, and she was just like hating it. And so my wife was like, there's got to be something better. And we only have 2 kids, and we're only gonna have 2. And my wife's just like, I don't know if I'm ready for this, but I don't want her to get behind. So she started looking around, and, you know, dude, schooling, there's just you just get pulled and torn in all these different directions. And so my wife finally found this lady that has all the background, you know, teaches the way we want our kids to be taught, and we just fell in love with it. So it's been awesome, man.
Did you go with like a classical curriculum more or less, or?
Yeah.
And now you're doing them both?
Yeah, they're both in it now.
Dude, talk about the flexibility. That's what's exciting now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
From now on, as long as you keep doing it, you could go anywhere you want, whenever you want.
Well, I was just laughing before I came in here. My little kids, my boy and girl FaceTimed me, and they're like, hey, how do I jumpstart this quad? Because we have a track in my backyard. And they're like together, like riding the track right now. You know, it's 1 o'clock or whatever. Like, that just wouldn't happen any other time.
I got Carter's in there going, hey, when am I going to do a podcast?
Yeah.
And I go, come out and watch it. Let's do it together, you know? So
I love it.
They get to see it, right? And you want to turn that down?
I can turn that down a little bit now.
Crank it down.
Right here?
Yeah.
There we go.
And so tell me about college. What's your thought process about college? Because I think I read you skipped it.
Yeah.
And I skipped a good part of it. I went for a couple years, and then I just never finished. And now you look at colleges and go, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. I'm not going to force my kids to college, but I guess it's one of those things, if they want to go, then I'll support them. My biggest thing is just learning opportunities. Like, now my kid can come to work. He comes to work with me almost every Friday. He sits in on almost all my meetings. He plays the games with the employees. Like, he's learning so much about business from just that, rather than like going to college. And anyone that I've ever really talked to, unless they're a doctor, orthodontist, or where they specialize in one thing, they've all said it was a waste of money and a waste of time. And they're just figuring out how to cheat the system anyway. So what are you doing with those 4 years? Might as well jumpstart it, have a good mentor in your life, and start going, kind of is my philosophy.
And you made your decision based off of you were on a church mission?
Yeah, so I went on a church mission, and then I got home, and my parents none of my parents went to college. So they're kind of like me, like, they weren't forcing it, but would have supported me if I went. And so it was just kind of one of those things where I just didn't do it.
Did you see something on that mission that turned you off to it, or you just came back and said, I just know that's...
It was just I didn't do great in school, to be honest. I was like my son, and that's why I was really hyper focused on him, is because he's me. When there's a classroom of 30 people, I'm not going to be that guy in the back and raise my hand if I don't understand something, because I'm going to feel stupid. And I knew that's how he was. And so, like, I had that little inclination, knowing that he might be behind because of that.
That's awesome.
But now the kids, you know, he's got one teacher, and the teacher, he'll try and like do it. Like, the first day he tried to pull his move on her, like, I don't have to do this, do that. Literally calls my wife, you know, in the other room or whatever, wherever she was, like, hey, does he have to do this? Like, yeah, okay. Right, so you can't pull his crap.
You can't hide anymore.
No.
Yeah, you peel the onion back, and you just are who you are, and you work from there. But clearly it's worked out.
Yeah, we're excited.
And he's got no trash. You know, you talk about all the things in school other than actual schooling, you know, other than actual numbers and science and stuff. It feels like most of it is trash. Not even in like elementary school. And I think COVID like really showed that, right? Because all of a sudden you and I were watching on screens what they got to go through all day. You're like, the hell is happening here?
Yeah.
Like this, a lot of good teachers. My wife was one, and
Yeah.
she is again now.
Yeah.
But you know, they're sleeping. Their kids are thrown. You know, it's like, well, this is crazy that this is what
There's
was
so
happening.
much fluff.
There's a ton of fluff to get the bill paid.
Yeah.
I think it's a broken system. I think it's been a broken system for a long time.
Yeah.
This episode of Casita Conversations is brought to you by Tropics Collective. Tropics uses only the highest quality Delta-9 and THC ingredients to bring you the very best of what cannabis has to offer. It's Farm Bill compliant, which means it's legal in all 50 states for everyone. Give it a try today, and if you use our promo code, you'll save 15% on your entire first order. Go to tropicscollective.com and use the promo code CASITA to get your discount today. Tropics Collective is defining the art of cannabis.
Let's talk about religion just for a second.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hit all the hot topics.
I love it.
I was born and raised very religious family, conservative, I would say non-denominational Christian type of family. It's all I ever knew. And now I look around and I see a lot of people my age, born and raised the same way, that are not going to church, still have some type of faith maybe, but views are changing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really feel that way until 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know if you feel that or you've seen it in the faith and religion you practice, or no, as you just say, that's totally off base.
No, I agree with you 100%.
What is that?
I think there's this thing going out there where, especially with like all the gender stuff, like just be happy in who you are and God will love you for that. And I agree with that, but God has standards and God has commandments, and just because you're not doing those things doesn't mean you're a bad person, but God has a standard for him. And if you want to, whatever you believe, if you believe in returning to live with him, or, going to the highest glory of kingdom, or whatever, but you have to sacrifice some things. And there's a lot of people out there that aren't willing to sacrifice a couple hours on a Sunday to go worship him, or sacrifice, whatever, partying or being faithful to your wife, or all those different things, because that's what makes you happy in the moment, and you deserve to be happy in the moment. There's this thing out there that you deserve happiness. What's your happiness? Happiness comes from sacrificing things a lot of the time.
Doing things that are tough,
Yep.
doing them right, and then reaping the rewards. There's
Yeah.
tons of reward with that. You mentioned the standards that God has, and what's interesting to me is I'm searching all these other types of religions, and
Mm-hmm.
you look at Buddhists and Taoism, and God called by whatever name. A lot of those standards exist in almost every religion. You almost have to give up on humanity entirely to be woke anymore, and to follow in some of those footsteps. Like you said, live the way you want, but you also have to treat others the way you want to be treated. That's almost every God that I've researched says that, right? So it's not even to me a question of a specific religion, but all religion has these sort of confines around how to get the most out of life and how to live a good life. And when you abandon that for what, like you said, for happiness in the moment.
Yeah.
How do you keep that? Because I want to get to your work stuff. I mean, what's really infatuating is going from a mission in 2010, did you say?
2009.
2009.
Let's see. No, 2007 to 2009.
Going from that mission to multiple businesses and multiple $1 million of revenue.
Yeah.
So the last religious piece,
Yeah.
does that infiltrate clearly it infiltrates your mindset, but does it infiltrate your businesses? Do you work to keep it out? Do you work to bring it in? Or are you agnostic about the religious overtones or undertones in your businesses? And each business, is it different because of the type of employee each business has, would you say? So maybe you have a business that has older employees, one business has younger employees just because of the nature of the business.
Yeah.
How does religion thread its way through?
It's funny that you asked that, because I've always just tried to lead by example, and that's my leadership style, right? So, just being a good person like Christ was, and that's how I tried to lead my business. I don't go in there talking about religion. There's so many rules out there with HR and what you can and can't say and get in trouble for, and I hate it. But actually tomorrow, one of my favorite pictures, I'm going to do a training on the words that we speak matter. But a lot of that is asking the questions and opening up to mentors and being vulnerable. So one of my favorite pictures is that picture of Christ. He's knocking at the door, but there's no doorknob on the door, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to share that tomorrow. And I kind of had a gut check moment, like, do I want to share this? Is this okay? Am I going to get in trouble for it? But at the end of the day, I'm like, who cares, man? Like the purpose, the why behind it is only good intentions of saying, hey, as managers, not to say we're like Christ, but there's a lot of people out there that care about you guys, but you need to ask for help. We're not going to come in and, we're going to try and ask questions and all these things, but you have to be willing to open up the door for training and be open to feedback.
And I think that's amazing, because that'll give your employees the idea that they can speak things that they didn't think. I never got that. I never got one side saying, you got to let me say whatever the hell I want to say.
Yeah.
And then, but you can't say certain things. And I think that's permeated this entire business culture, is like you can't shut anyone down if they want to give some crazy idea.
Right.
If they want a litter box in the corner because they're a furry,
Yeah.
you have to give it to them. But
You can't.
we second guess ourselves when you bring something of a religious nature in, even though the lesson inside of that, forget about the actual religion, the lesson inside of that is powerful.
Yeah.
But we still check ourselves.
Yeah, it sucks.
It sucks. But it sounds like you're training your managers and your leaders. You don't have to check yourself, because I've learned this, I would say, I guess, the easy way, because it is easier once you learn it. And that is, I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
My business isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
There are some people that would not want to work with me or hang out with me.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because there's, 700 and whatever billion other people, 7 billion people in the world. So
Yeah.
I don't need everybody.
Yeah.
And being able to identify that my niche is this, because that's who I am. And if I rub you the wrong way, first of all, understand my intention. But second of all, even if you don't understand my intention, I still rub you the wrong way.
Yeah.
I might be the wrong boss for you.
Yeah.
Right. Or I might be the wrong employee for you, or whatever.
No, I love that, man.
Save a lot of heartache maybe for employees that are like bashing their head against their wall because they can't stand your style of leadership. Well, there's another leader out there you can go follow.
Yeah.
So let's go to business now. So you came back from this trip and you said no college, but what on earth caused you to say, I'm going to start from scratch and try to build something?
I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and that was what was so frustrating when I got home. Is I was supposed to go into the land business with my dad, and that's where my love for aviation, why I got all my aviation licenses before, is because when I got home, I was supposed to go out and fly helicopters and fly investors around to these pieces, make a lot of money, and have a good time flying. Like that was it. That's what I saw my dad do as he grew up. Well, when I got home in 2009, it was a horrible economy. And at that time, my dad basically retired, and without saying it, but saying is like, I don't have anything for you. So that was the first time in my life where I didn't have a roadmap planned. Because up until then, my whole life was literally planned. Hey, elementary school, junior high, high school, aviation licenses, Boy Scouts, get your Eagle, get your aviation licenses, go on your mission. And then it was like, come home. And like, then the plan was done. So it was the most lonely feeling I had in my life. I remember just sitting at my mom's house on the floor in her office, just like sitting there, just like pounding my head against the wall, because I knew I wanted nice things. I love nice things. I wanted the helicopter. I wanted the big house. I wanted the fast cars, all those things. But I'm like, how do I do it? And I just, I got recruited to work for another pest control company through a good buddy of mine, especially in the LDS community. When you go serve a mission, when you come home, people are just going after you because you're used to rejection. You're used to knocking doors. And so solar companies, alarm, pest control, they're feasting off you. So it's not uncommon to get recruited. But I wasn't looking for a fast, quick 50. If you did a good job during the summer, you'd make 50 to 100 grand. Yeah, that'd be nice. But that wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for a career.
How old were you?
21.
So 100 grand at 21 back in 2010 is what 170 today. That's a good.
Is it?
I mean, it's a good pull,
It's
right?
a lot,
That's a good pull back then.
Especially with your single, living at home.
Yeah.
But once again, I knew, for whatever reason, I just knew I wanted a career. I didn't want to just chase the money at the beginning.
That wasn't the end game. So did you take that job with the mindset of I'm here to learn this job. I'm not here to perform this job for the rest of my life, but I'm going to learn everything I can about it because I want to start my own business? Or had you not gotten there yet?
Well, what's funny is I never got there, because when you're recruiting, you're working for free. Because with recruiting, it's just overrides on your guys and how well they did in the summertime. So I fell in love with pest control going through the recruiting process, because the owner, Jason Walton of Moxie, would just hand us a credit card and say, hey, just make sure you have guys on the team when you show up. So we were flying, doing these tournaments. He was paying for the gas in the plane, which isn't cheap. We were going to the nicest restaurants. We were buying them all the nicest clothes, headphones, whatever was out. And I was just like, this is awesome, But right before summer, he told me, hey, you have to do all these things. And then if you do all these things, maybe I'll give you a branch. And the branch isn't going to be in Arizona. I grew up in Arizona, man. I loved Arizona. I wanted to be in Arizona. So I actually bailed right before summer. And that summer I started a car detailing company because I didn't have anything else, except for a truck. I a hard worker and I knew how to wash cars. So I started that, quickly realized I'm not going to become rich doing this. And it was a lot of work, especially in the summer heat. And then that summer, my buddy came home after the summer and was like, hey, great company, but I know we can do this ourselves in Arizona. I want you to be a part of it. And at that time, I was kind of turned off against it. I was just like, no, I'm good. He's like, hey, I'm starting this company with or without you. I'm going to call it Green Mango. I'm like, that's the dumbest name I've ever heard of. I ain't doing it, man. And he's one of the most persistent guys you'll ever meet. Eventually talked me into it, and we started with one truck. And now we have over 100 trucks. We're probably the largest company in Arizona, man. So it's been crazy.
So you attribute your partner's persistency, to not only getting you here, but also helping you guys get to where you're at.
And he saw something in me that I didn't know at the time, but he saw me like an operational person. He was a branding person, and that was his area of expertise. But he saw how organized I was and how I could run businesses, and I didn't see that in myself. So he helped me start to believe in myself, and then he taught me how to sell. And it was a fun, like, I look back on it, it was obviously, like a lot of people say, it was the hardest time of my life. As now I look back, it's like, man, I miss those days where we were running the tech meeting at 6 a.m., running the building at 9, running the technicians and the sales team, and then going out knocking doors till 9, 10 o'clock at night. Like, that's what I remember, and I
miss
love
parts of that. Right. If you can do it again with the money that you have today, that makes it a little bit easier. So what?
That's funny. The other day I went out and knocked doors. Well, the other day was last year because we were doing this cruise incentive, and you had to sell, I think it was 6 accounts to qualify for the cruise, and all my people were struggling with it. I hadn't knocked doors for like 5 years, bro. But I'm like, screw this. I'm going out. I went out for 3 hours and got 6 accounts, dude. I was like, let's go, dude. It felt so good.
And what does that do to your team? Like, are they juiced? They got to be juiced at that point. Like, this can be done.
Because a lot of people there don't remember when I was out there knocking, So that's the beautiful thing about what I did is I literally have worn every single hat in every single facet of the business. But a lot of people here now are like, you don't know what it's like to be a customer service rep. You don't know what it's like to be a billing rep. I'm like, yes, I do. You don't know what it's like to upsell. I'm like, yes, I do. So I go out and I bang out 6 accounts and haven't knocked doors in 5 years. And I think it was like 3.5 hours. And I was just like, talk about like just being on fire, dude. It was awesome.
And so do you have certain employees that go, yeah, but that's because it's you, Cameron?
I don't play the owner card on the door. To me, it's a disadvantage. So they just think I'm another guy.
That's awesome.
I mean,
and now, do you purposefully sit in these seats? So that was to ramp up because of the cruise deal, right? But the customer service seat, when you say no one knows, you don't know what that's like, because it's been 4 or 5 years, and there might be some validity to, you don't know what it's like today, which might be totally different consumer than it was 5 years ago. But do you constantly or occasionally find yourself purposefully putting yourself in those seats so that you can always say, I know exactly what it's like?
That's a good point. No, I haven't gotten on the phones and done that, or I haven't sprayed a route in a very long time. But a lot of those things don't change very much, in my opinion. The same problems that were 10 years ago are the same problems today. They want to know about their billing. They want to cancel. They have questions about their service. They're pretty simple things. So anytime a manager is coming to me saying, hey, this CSR can't take 30 calls a day, I'm saying, hey, break it down for me. Why not? What else? The other teams has an average of 3.5 minutes per call. Why is this person special or different? Like, let's look into it.
So one of the keys to your success, I think I'm hearing, is your management team now.
Yeah.
How did you go from you and your partner to now we got to go manager? That's a big jump, right? Because that's a money constraint. Like, where did you find that was the right moment where you said we have enough money, or I'm willing to take a little bit of a pay cut so I can start to scale this thing?
So I don't think I did it right. We waited 6 years until we really hired managers. We were wearing every single hat, and finally it was just out of exhaustion to where, like, if we want to keep growing, we have to hire people. So that's where it went from working 16 to 18 hours a day, like literally not just saying that, to let's hire a couple managers. And then once we hired people, we were only working 7, 8 hours a day, and that felt like I was the laziest guy in the whole world. And that's when all the other companies sparked, because we're like, we have time now. We hired people, and not to say the company's perfect, but it's running more efficient than it ever has, because what we were doing in every single department, now we have a single person in that department focusing on it. And now, like, we're not needed. We worked ourselves out of a job, and that's where we're like, let's do more. Let's do something else.
Did you see a revenue change in that first year, 12 months?
That's the first year I took money out of Green Mango. So that's crazy.
Once you started hiring your team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that scary to let it go? I mean, once you've got your hands in everything and you know how you want it to be done.
Yeah.
And then you got to let it go.
For sure.
What made you know that you had the right person to do that?
I didn't, but it's just through trial and error. And what I've learned now is that most of the time when almost every time someone's failing, it's because of your ability to train them or lead them in the correct manner.
Wow, I like that one. We should rewind that, repeat it, and let's write it down. That's really good. So you found the people, you started to scale it, you feel like it's starting to run itself. What was that? That's what you had said. Then it's starting to run itself, or now it's totally running itself, or for the most part. What was the time frame on that? Because I think most people, this is where I see most people get stuck. Most business owners, they have a good idea, they're willing to grind, they're making some money, and sometimes it's good money, and they can't take it to the next level. Either they don't want to give it up and let someone else trust someone else, or they don't want to take a pay cut because sometimes you got to pay someone else. There's only so much revenue, and there's no guarantee of return. So what was the time frame for you like when you and your partner decided to scale it from that time till you breathed a sigh of relief that you saw yourself actually scaling it without more time from you?
Yeah. So we I wish we were that methodical about it, but we just knew we wanted to be the biggest. And we knew that if we wanted to be the biggest, we were going to have to hire people in the interim. And because we didn't have I was married, but we didn't have any kids. And that changes things. So your expenses aren't that much. So we always wanted to continue to invest. So I wasn't worried about, hey, if we hire this person, that's $60,000 or $70,000 less to our bottom line at the end of the year, because I knew that when I was going to hire someone, they're going to at least provide $60,000 that year to pay for themselves. And if we're doing it right with the right KPIs in place, they're going to add 2 to 3 times. So if you're if we're talking to the business owner that's worried about making, let's say they hire someone for $70,000, that shouldn't be your mentality. That person should be making you another $210,000 to $280,000 that year if you have the proper, like I said, KPIs in place. A lot of people will go hire them. They won't have written down on a contract what they expect. So then you have mismanaged expectations between each other. You're sitting down in front of them in 6 months from now and saying, hey, you're fired because you're not doing a great job. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm doing everything that you asked. No, you're not. And so I had to learn that lesson. I was laughing, not to get off topic here, but on the same subject, I was talking to my CFO the other day, and he was telling me how frustrated he is with one of the people on his team. And I said, do they know that you're frustrated? And they're like, no, but I told her to cease all things right now. And I said, okay. I went back this morning, I called her, I said, hey, and I, called her by name and said, how do you think you're doing it in the accounting department? She says, I'm nailing it. I'm doing it. I said, how do you feel like everything that they've trained you on, do you think you're operating at 80%, 90%, 100%, 50%? What is it? She said, they tell me all the time I'm operating at 100%. I understand everything perfectly. I just said, all right, thank you. I can't wait to have that conversation with my CFO because it's like, hey, communicate with your people. So we started implementing write-ups. I wasn't a huge fan of write-ups, but especially we were talking about, religion and all the things in order to fire someone these days, you have to have 2 to 3 occurrences of where they messed up. It's very difficult to not get in trouble if you have someone mess up one time and you just let them go. You have to have things written out. So we became these huge advocates this year on write-ups, and it's been so awesome because you can't write someone up by beating around the bush. It's very clear, hey, I'm writing you up for this. So what I saw before this year is that a manager would go up to someone, and let's say they were at a dress code, they'd be like, hey man, you need to clean up your shirt a little bit and trim your beard. You're not looking on point. That guy might hear that as just kind of like, hey, he cares, but it's not. So yeah, suggestion. Yeah. But when they're writing up, it's like, hey, failure to have a new shirt, failure to trim the beard at 1 inch, failure, and it's just very straight and to the point. Now that person knows, and yeah, it's a little awkward, especially if you're good friends with that person, but it's just understanding expectations. There's a reason why contracts, and this from the finance, 80% of a contract is spelling out what the words mean in the contract. Like business is no different, but entrepreneurs don't have the time or the resources of the people to go down that route and really spell out what they expect out of that employer that they're hiring. And that's where you get frustrations. And, you don't get it, when you're worried about someone hiring at 70 grand, that person's going to make you money 100% if you do it right.
Let me go back to, you said something about the expectations and the write-up. And that made me, and you said it's a little bit awkward when you're friends. So that made me think about when you start a small business, it's very hard not to become close to the people you're hiring because you're small, right?
Yeah.
You're like a hit squad, and it's just
Right.
you guys against the world, or you girls against the
Yeah.
world, whatever. So, right?
I'm
So even
laughing.
in my mind, you got to say what you got to say. So how do you make that? Do you make a conscious effort to disconnect now that you're at a level where you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 employees, and you say, it's really hard for me to run this company being friends with everybody, because there's some really hard decisions that you have to make.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're friends with people, it clouds your mind. So is there a way to disconnect? Do you even feel like that's necessary? Or do you still have the folks that you hired 8-9 years ago that would consider you friends, and they will always be that way?
Yeah.
And it doesn't affect their work environment with you?
I think if a manager's, in my opinion, if he's doing his job, because my biggest reason why I have managers is because I want them to go above just the expectations from the business. I want him to care about him as a friend. I want him to know what's going on in his personal life, with his family, with his kids, because I want it to become a family. So if they're doing it right, they're going to have that relationship. But part of that is you don't want to just show up one day and say, hey, Cameron's asking me to let you go. I got to let you go. You want to give him as many warnings as you can, just like a good buddy would. If you're going off a deep end, maybe you're partying a little too much or doing something you shouldn't. If a buddy came up to you and was like, hey man, you need to cool it down for a little bit, I see you're getting a little out of control, like you would appreciate that. And business is no different. That's how write-ups are. And it's all about the training from the beginning is, hey, this is a warning as a friend to let you know, like, we need you to take this seriously, or else there'll be higher or bigger consequences in the future.
And then what's your thought process to that firing process when you've had to do it before? Maybe you don't do it so much now because your managers are doing it.
Right.
But when you have to do that, what kind of anxiety? I mean, you clearly have a nice spirit about you. So what kind of anxiety does that give you? Some people don't care. They're just assholes, and it's all about the bottom line.
Yeah.
I don't feel that from you. So does it affect your firing practices?
Well, I haven't fired someone in a long time, but what I train my people to do is no one should come into that room and be taken off guard. They should see it coming and know exactly what's happening, and pretty much like agree with you while you're doing it. Because at that point, you've written them up 3 times, you've talked them through, you've helped coach them, and you've given them every opportunity. At that point, the guy's just being a jerk to you. And that's why, I will say we have a strict no texting and driving policy, because we were getting in so many accidents. Literally like 2 accidents a month. My insurance skyrocketed, and my insurance guy came to me and said, look, we can no longer hire people 21 years. They have to have at least 5 years of driving experience. And you need to have a no texting and driving policy, period. So people know that. But I tell my managers, if you're going to fire someone because they were texting and driving, you shouldn't feel bad, because they put themselves in that position and they put the company at risk. They were the ones being selfish, not you for firing them.
Yeah, that's good. We kind of got in the weeds there, but what I think that's helpful. I think it's helpful because I think a lot of self-employed small business people or mid-sized business people are going through that same thing without any type of that direction, and they're just kind of finding out. Like you've said a couple times, I don't think I did it the right way. Well,
Yeah.
It landed you here, so something about it was right. But to have that wisdom from the future for someone that's just starting today, I
Yeah.
think is invaluable. So what caused you, I'm super interested in this, because there came a point where you said you were working 8 to 10 hours and you felt lazy. So what caused you to say, well, I want something totally different? Because some of your other businesses have absolutely nothing to do with the pest. How do you make the leap from the pest control world to these other businesses that you've decided
So all
to
of them
start?
are home services, and that's what they do have in common. Although it's pools, it's alarms, it's solar, carpet cleaning, windshield replacements, so like it all has to do with home services. And people were asking us, Hey, do you guys do pools? Do you guys do alarms and stuff like that? So we felt like it was a easy barrier to entry with our existing customers. And I thought at the time it was like a same business model. Come to find out, all of them are completely different, but it was a great learning experience. And that's why, we talked about college. I think it's great, but a lot of people don't go to college because they don't want to be educated. You have to be educated somehow, whether that's through self-education or through college. That's your choice. But you can't be successful in life and not be reading books or YouTube videos or have a mentor who's training you or a life coach. Like, you have to, those principles about human psychology or the things that we're talking about today, like, they have to be learned at some point.
And then how do you hear about that? So it sounds to me like you just kept your eyes open. Your ears and eyes were open, and you're getting these questions about other services. But how do you hear about it? Because you aren't getting them directly, right? They're coming through a chain of command. And are you encouraging your employees, keep your ears open for what we're doing or what we're not doing for people that they're asking about? I mean, are you actively looking for those businesses, or do you feel like you were falling into them?
Probably a little bit of both. When we wanted to do them, we would tell our technicians, hey, ask the customers, who they're using or if they would use us and stuff like that. But we wanted to do them. Like, we saw it as another opportunity. And I thought, I mastered pest control. I can go master this service industry as well. And that's how we got into it.
From $0 to what's your annual revenue?
In just Green Mango?
Yeah.
We hit 24 million so far this year. We'll probably end up with a little bit more
in revenue. One of the largest in the state.
Yeah.
In a decade.
Well, what's cool about that, like, revenue is a cool number, but we'll average a 28% EBITDA margin on that, which is unheard of in service companies.
And you're employing people. You're changing people's lives.
Yeah, we have over 150 employees at Green Mango, just Green Mango, which is cool.
That's awesome. From a persistent partner that got you in it.
Yeah.
I know you're big into health. You've got a few hobbies too. So you don't strike me as someone that likes to take a whole lot of rest time. But how do you focus all of this? You like to golf, I think. I saw that. You have helicopter business and you fly.
Just for fun, not a business.
Just for fun. Plenty of hobbies. You spend a lot of time on your health. It shows.
Oh, thank you.
How do you balance all of that now?
Just making time for it.
Have you always?
No.
Okay.
I have a cool story. In 2018, I lost my investor, and then 2019 was like the worst year of my life. But what was crazy is I told myself from 2010, my whole goal is like, hey, if I make enough money, it can solve all my other problems. Well, 2019, I made more money than I ever had at the time, but it was my loneliest, worst year ever. And that's when I started, a year prior to that, about 6 months actually, I started coaching with a life coach. And he introduced this balance wheel to me, talking about all the different, there's 6 or 7, depending on the wheel that you're looking at, factors of a person's life: health, fitness, personal relationships, and friends, family, finance. But I looked at my balance wheel, and obviously you score yourself 1 out of 10, but I was like a 7 or 8 on my wheel for finance. But all these other areas were like 2s and 3s. And that's when I really started to take it serious. And I'm not going to say I'm perfect, but it's something I do every few months as I analyze myself on this wheel and, make improvements with where I'm at.
Did you ever, because you were married most of that time?
Yeah.
Did you say? Yeah. Did you ever get feedback from your spouse that your wheel was off? I mean, it's real easy. I'm thinking about it from my life, and it's real easy to get that feedback from the kids because they're transparent. They'll just tell you.
Yeah.
What about your spouse? Were you getting that feedback? What caused you to break into that life coach, to even alert yourself that you needed to get with a life coach to find balance?
Yeah. It's just something internally that I felt. My wife has always been supportive and encouraging, which I tell her all the time now. Like, I look back, I'm like, wow, like, you've been amazing through this entire process. Thank you. But when you're off personally, so that's
you
what
just
sparked
felt it inside.
Yeah.
More money, more problems. You made it as much as you ever made in 2019. I feel like people listen and go, that's easy for you to say.
Yeah.
You sit in a beautiful house and you have a beautiful family and but what can you tell somebody about that? How do you get somebody to believe that money doesn't solve those issues?
Well, when I think about happiness, a lot of people think money is happiness, but what if you're 200 pounds overweight and you can barely get out of bed, but you have all the money in the world and you're too fat to get in your Lamborghini? Like, are you really happy? Or let's say you have no money and you're a spiritual person, but you can't pay your bills and you're living on the street, but you have God in your life. Like, and I could go through every single, what if you have all these friends, but you don't have money to hang out with them, or they don't like being around you because you're not positive, or you don't believe in God and you're a doomsdayer. So when you think about the end goal, everyone's end goal isn't money, it's happiness. So how do you become happy? Even if you're a 3 or 4 on a scale of 1 to 10, on all the wheels, you're a more balanced person than having an 8 or a 9 or a 7 and a 6 over here. The more balanced you are, the more happier you truly are. I believe that. That's what I've come to found. I didn't believe it. I had to go through basically 9 years of, unhappiness to figure out, like, that's my true happiness.
And you check in every couple months on the same concept, on the same balance?
Yeah.
Do you let your family score you or your employees score you, or do you just internalize it?
No, that's probably the hardest but most rewarding thing that my life coach did originally was he said, hey, give me the names of your 5 closest people you work with or best friends. I'm going to have them, I want you to be open to hearing what they have to say about you. And that was hard, man. But it was great.
Was there any surprises in there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What was your least favorite surprise?
I'm very competitive. You could probably sense that, but I love playing basketball as well. One of the feedbacks that my buddies had, and it's all, they say it's anonymous, but based off of who you interviewed, it's like, that little punk said that. When a ball would go out or a foul would happen, like, he's like, hey, I don't even try and argue with Cam anymore because he's always right. You can't convince him. And to me, I hated that. And as I looked back on it, I was like, yeah, man, he's right. And so I hate that mentality, not just for basketball, but how am I in business? When an employee comes to me and says, hey, I think there's a problem here. Like, I was probably fighting them on that and made them look like an idiot for even bringing it up and why my way was the best. And so it wasn't just about basketball. It was about my whole life and being open to hearing what other people have to say about what I'm doing.
And did that affect you moving forward? So do you take that opinion and go, what can I do to actively work on that?
Yeah. Yeah. So now when someone has feedback, and I've done a lot of coaching on ego and, recognizing when my ego is engaged. And so most of the time when people come at you with feedback, your ego wants to jump in and engage and try and prove to that person why they're wrong because they're making you look bad. And now it's all just information coming in. Okay, this guy, he's probably right. Like, let's hear what you have to say and thank him for giving you that feedback, and then getting back to him after you've kind of cooled off. If you are engaged, maybe talk through a couple of your other, key team members that you trust, and then coming back to that person with a clear head and saying, hey, most of the time they're right, dude. That's what's crazy. Like, people get to see it from a different perspective. Or if they're wrong, then, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and they might have another idea for you.
So the first time that ball went out of bounds after that?
I stopped arguing, dude. I just like, cool. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, dude. Like, who cares, I'll still win at the end.
I think that's I think that is more important. The most important thing out of this, that whole piece of the discussion is understanding what of it really matters and what of it doesn't. And I have found that quite a bit of it, if not most of it, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's a few things that do really, really matter and you should live and die by. Those are hills you should definitely die on. But there's quite a bit of everything else that just doesn't. And there's a piece of you that wants to feel like you're not giving up, you're not giving in, you're going to stand firm on this. And then at the end of the day, it's like, well, what effect does it have if I do give in?
Yeah.
It makes me feel a certain way, but other than that, could it benefit their life? Could it actually benefit my life in the future by saying, you know what, maybe you're right, and at the end of the day, if you're not, it's okay. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But then you have to identify those hills to die on too, when you just draw the line.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's where someone would say that's really easy for you to say, Cameron, because of where you were through those 9 years. But what strikes me is you were making good money by the end of those 9 years, but you still understood that you needed something more than that.
Yeah.
You got out of your echo chamber because you were probably surrounded by people that weren't giving you that feedback until you started really, really asking for it verbally.
Well, no one wants to give it to you if you just like fight back. Like, how fun is it to give someone feedback if they make you feel like an idiot when you do?
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah.
What's your favorite business right now? How many do you have? How many companies do you have?
So I've narrowed it down now. We had 6 at one point, and now I have coconut, Green Mango, and Agave Auto Glass. And then we have a marketing company, but we don't really take on other clients. It's more so for our internal company.
Do you like tropical fruit?
It just happened that way, man.
Come on. All right. So you have three. Which one's your favorite?
It's hard, man. It's like asking who's your favorite kid. They're all favorites for different reasons. I spend 95% of my time in Green Mango.
Still to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has the greatest return for me for my time. I'm the most passionate about it because that's where I started. But I also have, in each company that we started, I didn't want to be the jack of all trades. So I would go in and find a managing partner who understood the industry better than, most people, or at least had experience in it. And we'd bring the operations to the table, the marketing and the finance, and then they would bring their expertise in that field. So I kind of let them, this is their everything. This is their Green Mango. So I don't want to come in there and overshadow them. So they run the day-to-days, they run the meetings. I'll come in and, here and there, but it's more so behind doors where I'm consulting them on problems and helping them based off of what I've learned from my mistakes at Green Mango.
So you have a different partner for each business?
Yeah.
How's that?
It's been great.
When you vet a partner, what are you looking for?
I've lucked out. Most of the time, they've been people that either knock doors for us at the beginning, and then I've watched them kind of go through other areas in their life. So for example, my partner at Coconut, he was on our first or second year sales team, knocked with us for a summer, left us, and we kept in touch for 5 or 6 years. He actually went into he worked for Zero Res, opened up Tucson for them, so understood the carpet cleaning model, and then we recruited him over.
So you stay in touch with them?
Yeah.
Afterwards.
So we get to know them, but basically just someone that I can trust, that understands the industry and is a hard worker. That's all I care about. I'll help them learn, and and they need to be coachable, but that's someone that's what I consider trustworthy.
And then do you try to self-fund all of these? Do you go out and look for outside investors? What has been your strategy?
So originally, when I mentioned briefly that I lost my investor in 2018, so that was a huge reason why we opened up so many so quickly, is because we had an investor that wanted to fund all of them and move quickly. And so that's why we did it. Now they're all personally funded by me. I actually just bought out my business partner at Green Mango. Actually just closed on it 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah, man.
That's
huge. It's been crazy.
How's it feel to not have the investor presence? Because sometimes that could be a stress, right?
That's what people don't understand. Investors are awesome and they help you at the beginning and even along the way, but I've felt a lot more at ease knowing that I don't have to answer to any investors or have that downward pressure, and it's been nice, man. It comes at disadvantages too, to grow as quickly as I want, but it's been good.
So you have a roadmap for each of the companies where you think it's going to go over the next. How do you plan it out? Is it 6 months, 12 months, 5 years?
So we have a 5-year plan, and then we break that down into, quarterly obtainable goals that we're hitting.
And you're getting buy-in from your management, or who are you bouncing that off of to make sure that you're on the right path?
So my CFO plays a huge role in that, and, lining out, what he believes is possible. And then we take that to our management teams and talk to them about, if they feel like the same goals are obtainable, and then just keep breaking it down from there.
One more time about the health.
Yeah.
What's your go-to? If you're feeling like shit one day, how do you overcome that? Do you have a routine that you go to every single time? We've heard nothing but sauna, cold plunge, and that will change your life for the rest of your life. But what's your routine?
Dude, I just did an 86-hour fast last week, and I never felt better.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because I have done 3-day juice cleanses.
Okay.
And that second day, the mental anguish that I went through is intense.
Yeah, I did a juice cleanse once.
So, which doesn't compare at all to this.
It's still, I think that was harder, dude.
Really?
I think so.
So no food.
Yeah.
At what point does your mind go, I can't do this, Cameron, give up?
I never had that.
Not once.
I'm not being like that guy, but I never had that. But because I believe I never had that because, and this is what I would train my kids about, it's so important to have little mental victories and recognize it. I've trained my brain to be so powerful, and I have so much more to go, but Like, I know that my brain knows, like, hey, don't mess with my body knows, don't mess with my brain once he decides it. And I think I learned that for a certain period there, I was running a ton. I did an Ironman, I ran a marathon, a couple of halves. And while running, I feel like it's one of the best ways to train your brain of what your body can do, because 1 mile into a run, your body's wanting to quit and give up and slow down. But if you have this pace you're trying to hit and the miles that you committed to before you started, like, to me, it was just, helped me train my brain so much. So literally I have that's why I'm going to talk about tomorrow I have this huge company-wide meeting where I get to talk to all the employees, 150 people. And I'm going to talk about the words you speak matter. So not one time did I complain or say out loud that I was hungry. And I truly believe, like, that's why I never got hungry. I never did.
Was your spouse, obviously she had to be on board with it, right? Because she can't just start opening up Big Macs in front of you during this 86. Or were you like, bring it on, I'm good. I'm so iron in my.
We didn't talk about it because she's so awesome. Like, she put all the food in the butler's pantry. And like, even one night when she came home with the food, she's like, hey, do you want us to eat outside? I'm like, no, you're like, I'm good. But she knows.
She was probably just breathing a sigh of relief that you didn't ask her to do it with you.
Yeah. Well, I did, but she's like, I already feel amazing. Why would I want to do this? And I was like, all right. Like,
so
no,
for
no
you,
pressure.
you probably already felt pretty good too, right? Because this health thing hasn't been new for you.
I've
So
always
what
had
was
like
it?
stomach issues.
So this
I don't
was in an
know.
effort to try to
Cleanse
right
my
some
stomach.
of that, cleanse it out.
Yeah.
And you said at the end of it, you felt great.
Dude, during it, I felt this has been a rough year for me. Like, there've been a lot of changes. I mentioned the partner buyout. Like, a lot of things have happened, and I felt more peace last week than I have all year. And just like, my body just felt at peace is the best words I could describe it, and happier. I don't get it, man.
And coming off of that, is there a certain amount of protection you now want to have for your body where you're like, all right, I just put it through this. It totally made a difference.
Yeah.
So now are you just that much more in tune to what you're putting into it? This week at least? I mean, it's fresh.
I don't know if I can sustain it because, it's hard. But yeah, as I was happier, as my body felt at peace, it was I need to hire a personal chef, because all the crap that you put into your body truly does bog you down. And I always knew that, but it was highlighted 10 times when I was on this, because I felt literally phenomenal. I had 2 buddies that did it with me, and they're like, because I told them, like, hey guys, I don't want to hear, like, we're not gonna come to work, because they work with me. I'm like, I don't want to have like this session where we're just talking about how hungry we are. Like, don't invite me to that. I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
But they're like, after we had this like little celebratory, lunch where we're eating all this brisket, fatty brisket, because you're supposed to eat a lot of fat after. And they're like, okay, be honest, Cameron, was it hard? I'm like, no. And they're like, I was dying the second day. I was so hungry and all this stuff. I was just laughing, but.
So it's the mental. It's got to be your mentality, because obviously it's hard to do. That's a hard thing to do. And the folks and the guys you were doing it with realized that it was hard to do, and they were struggling. And you just said, don't put me around that.
Yeah.
I want my mindset to be totally different.
Yeah, man, it's powerful.
That's
I'll share you this video. Jesse Etzler, I think I'm saying his name right, has this talk about how he couldn't get past running 34 miles. And he had this coach come in and basically talk to him about the words that we speak matter. And even saying out loud during the run, like, I'm grateful that we're running right now. But like at the water stations, he would tell people, hey, you want to know something crazy about me and my friend here? We don't get tired. And he would just keep telling himself that.
And so was that happening at work? I mean, you said
people would ask how you doing. I'd be like, dude, the crazy thing about me is I don't get hungry, so it's not even a big deal.
Wow. And just to be
It
clear
sounds
for
so
everybody
dumb,
listening,
but-
that was 3.5 days of putting nothing in your body but water.
Water and electrolytes.
Water and electrolytes.
Yeah.
Wow. Would you do it again?
I'm going to do it. I got to figure out how often it is that it's like healthy enough to do it, but I will do it for sure. And I'm doing intermittent fasting now. I'm trying that ever since. And so far I feel great. And the feeling that I felt last week has like continued on so far.
And have you engaged the private chef? Now you're ready to try to clean it up?
My wife doesn't want someone in the house. And so like I'm trying to get around that and figure that out. But
Sounds like a backyard casita maybe?
I know. We'll figure it out, man.
What's next for you?
I'm just focused. Like I've paid the price of learning, getting distracted on all these different things. But for me, I have a 5-year plan at Green Mango, and I'm locked in on that. And then in between, I'm building my personal brand because I want to continue to help other people doing what you're doing. I think this is great. I love this setup, man.
Thanks.
But there's so many people out there that don't have a support system. Luckily, I had a dad that I went to, and I said, hey, Dad, something's missing in my life. And he said, you need to start coaching with my buddy Mark Fournier. And that's how I didn't even know about coaches. I didn't know that existed. And there's so many people that don't have a dad or a mom or a friend that they can turn to for business advice. So that's why I love the content that's being pushed out right now. And that's who I want to be, is pushing out content about home services. I've literally made probably millions and millions of dollars worth of mistakes that I've had to pay for, that I could share with people and help them so they don't have to do that. And so that's my goal over the next 5 years as I continue to ramp up Green Mango. And of course, build the other companies, but I personally locked in on Green Mango.
I think if someone could capture your holistic view of that, there's a piece of it, and a big piece of it is business, but most of it is in my mind, it's not business, it's mental.
Yeah.
Like, you started with a certain mindset, and you've never lost that mindset. It's only gotten stronger, and it's gotten better as you continue to educate yourself. The outcome of that is fantastic business. Right?
Yeah.
But I wonder if people go into it thinking, I'm going to grow this multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah.
That's the wrong thought. Maybe, or is it not?
When they're starting the company?
At any point, like, if you're doing it to grow a multi-million-dollar business, but you don't have the rest of the mindset that you had, which was, I'm going to work harder. Clearly, you were willing to work harder.
Yeah.
Put time and effort into learning things, even after you had created some success for yourself. That's not because you could have stopped in 2017 and went, I've made it.
Yeah.
I'm making plenty of money. I'm doing all
Yeah.
that I need to do. But that's, to me, like, 2019 sounds like a whole new beginning for you.
Yeah.
After you've been successful for 9 years.
Yeah.
That's not a business, because you created the business success already. The success came from your mindset of being able to not focus on, well, am I looking to just create $24 million of revenue?
You're right.
Because if that was the game plan, that you're done with that.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's fulfillment. Even my wife asked me, I just bought out my partner, which is me doubling down on the company again. She's like, why don't you just sell out right now? We have plenty of money to do whatever we want to and be together. And I just said, I love what I do. And I think that's what's important. You need to love what you do. And I love coming to work, and I love doing everything that I do. And so why not, make a big lofty goal over the next 5 years and do what I love while doing it.
Do what you love. I think that's the point.
Yeah.
Do what you love, and you'll be successful. Well, I really appreciate it, man. If someone could follow in your steps, they'd be lucky to have you as a mentor.
Appreciate that.
If you had one last thing to say to your wife and 2 kids, what would it be?
One last thing?
Yeah, if you didn't make it home on your ride home
Wow. Well, I'd hope that they'd already know what I feel, but yeah, that's a great question, man. I don't know. That's deep. There's so many different things that go through my mind, but I'd hope that they know for me, it's all about my reputation. So I hope that they would see, as they're at the funeral, as they talk to people, that I helped change lives. And everything that I did was for us as a family to be able to do the fun things. And obviously, of course, know that I love them. So
awesome.
But yeah.
Thanks, brother. It's been a
Appreciate
pleasure.
You.
Yeah, cheers.
Nice to meet you.
Right on. Yeah, you as well. Stay in touch for sure. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Acrylic Financial Incorporated is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed by those on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Acrylic Financial. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance, and some guests may have been paid a fee to be interviewed for this show.